everybody, and welcome to Generally Speaking, the podcast that bridges the worlds of pop culture and personal development. I'm your host, Jennifer Snook. I'm so happy to be here with you today. Before we get into what's happening in my world, if by chance you're watching this on YouTube, do me a favor and reach out right now and smash that subscribe button. And if you're listening to this on any of your favorite platforms, please make sure you reach out and give us a follow. Just takes a second, just a little beep boop, beep boop. Thank you very much. Now, here is what's happening in my world. I am so excited because we are going to be recapping two amazing episodes. We are going to be doing the most insane episode that I have ever seen of Potomac, or probably maybe any other franchise. I mean, Potomac was insane this week. And we're recapping the OC, first part of the OC reunion. So that's coming up. But before we do that, I am going to see Dancing with the Stars tonight. I have a very special date with my daughter. We're going to go see Jules tear it up, and I am so excited. And here is the other big thing that's happening in my life, you guys. My family is in a huge predicament, right? And I do mean a huge predicament. And granted, these are first world problems, but they are causing us angst. So I am a huge Wicked fan, okay? Huge. Have been since the show came out. Huge. I have seen it everywhere. I've seen it, well, not everywhere, but I've seen it on Broadway. I've seen it in England, in the West End. I've seen it here in LA. My girls, huge. I mean, as a family, we are just balls to the wall Wicked fans. But the problem is my baby, my youngest, who lives in New York, isn't planning on coming home for Thanksgiving. So the question is, and that's obviously when the movie comes out, the question is, do the three of us go and see it without her? Do me and my girls go and see it without her? Well, Mike would probably go with us too, but would we go without Ryan, or do we wait until Christmas so that we can all go together? And it is really kind of throwing a wrench in my Thanksgiving plans because I've been so looking forward to seeing Wicked. I mean, to watch Ariana Grande and Cynthia take those two roles and turn them into a whole new brand of magic. And you know, the thing is I trust those two. And I know that Ariana, because she has been such a lifelong fan herself, I know that she would not participate in anything that didn't honor the true magic that happened on the stage with that show. She just wouldn't. She would never do that to the show. So I have full confidence in what I'm going to see. I know my expectations are high, and that's just the way it goes. They're high, and I have no doubt that they are going to be met. The question is, what do I do? Do we wait for Ryan, or do we go see it ourselves? It's hard. Anyway, you guys, speaking of Wicked, did you hear that Mattel, was it Mattel? Yeah, it was Mattel that, the dolls came out, the Elphaba and the Glinda dolls came out, and on the packaging, Mattel posted some porn site website. I mean, how in God's name does that happen? Weird. Okay, you guys, and the big news of the day, this was literally the first thing I laid my eyes on when I opened my phone today. Little Miss Kyle Richards is finally coming out of the closet. And granted, she's not quite out yet, but she has opened that door and she is stepping through. And you guys know that I've been saying forever that she's been in a relationship with Little Miss Morgan, I'm going to make you fall in love with me, Wade. And it seems like now Kyle is finally ready to come out. Kyle gave an interview to Page Six, and she was basically just saying that she was wrestling with all of these new feelings that she's never had. And she didn't want to tell anyone, basically, until she was able to tell her daughters. And she said that broaching that whole subject with them was just such a terrifying experience, but that the girls all met her with great acceptance, and it's allowed her to step into her own truth. So I'm excited for her. I really am, because we should only ever be living our truths, right? I mean, if you're not living your truth, your life is going to run off course. And that's how people get miserable. And that's how people start self-medicating, because they're not living their truth. When you're not living your truth, the world will keep reflecting that back to you and just keep facing you with that truth. So, I mean, own your shit, get in your lane, and just live your life. Speaking of living her life, little Miss Teddy Mellencamp has obviously been living her life and having some fun while doing it, because apparently there was an affair that took place that was the impetus for this divorce that she's having with Edwin. We all assumed that Edwin was the little cheater, but seems that our dear Teddy has been having a little or a lot of fun with her daughter's horse trainer. So, and apparently there was like a full-on confrontation about it at the stables with the trainer's wife. So, which kind of makes sense, right? It made sense if we were really paying attention to her podcast. If it was Edwin's fault, if Edwin had been the cheater, do you think that she'd be so tight-lipped about everything? She's just been really measured, and you know what I mean? I really think Teddy would have been much more vocal had Edwin been, the one that screwed up. On another note, did you guys see the picture of Kathy Hilton and Sutton drunk karaokeing like you have never seen? I mean, squatting down, just like living it up, like having the time of their lives. Right over in West Hollywood, right around the corner from where I work. I mean, they were surrounded by oiled down, naked dudes with big bulges for all the world to see, grinding up on them. So, I just wonder what the ballet, what the board of ballet directors thinks about Sutton and her behavior. Megan Fox is pregnant, everybody. She is having a little machine gun baby. This is going to be her fourth. And congratulations to them. You know who else is having a baby? Erin Leachy from New York, which I feel like is just going to be one more thing for her to stress about. This is a little harsh, but Erin just seems like miserable and unhappy inside. And I just hope she's not having a baby to fill up that spot inside of her, because that's not what babies are for. Vicky has called for Tamra's firing, you guys. I mean, Vicky, of all people. Vicky is no bueno in my book. I mean, honestly, I think she's a scumbag. And I know that might sound harsh, but on her podcast, that one with the ridiculous name, she said some horrible shit, not just about Tamra, but then she went on to say that, remember Dawn, her ex-husband? She said that Dawn never liked her kids, Michael and Brianna. And that is just not true. And why she would make that allegation to try and vilify him when the kids went out of their way to maintain a good relationship with Dawn that I think they still have to this day. I mean, Brianna wanted her kids to look to him as their grandfather. I mean, so what a horrible thing. Even if that was true, why would she want her kids to believe that about him? I think she is horrible. I think Vicky will do anything to get back at someone. I think she is just empty and vile and bitter inside. I really do. Anyway, you guys, it's time for reality check. We are going to start, like I said, in Potomac with this balls to the wall episode. Okay, it opens with Karen fielding questions about whether or not she needs to be in rehab. And of course she says, no, I don't. But if I did, I would tell you, and thank you for asking. Karen says she's an advocate for people who need help. She says, if we get sick, let's get help. And then she says, and Mia knows that. I mean, Mia's been through rehab herself. And everybody's like, Mia's what? And then she tells the women that Mia had an opiate addiction, and that's actually what inspired her to open the joint. The ladies are fully in shock, and Karen keeps on with the character assassination. She says, Mia would step on Jesus to stand up. She says, I take this personally, and payback is a motherfucker. She is too much for me. Meanwhile, Wen, who is actually Zen for once, says that she is in her birthday bubble and nobody can ruin her vibe. Then a few of the ladies join Ashley by the pool in their bikinis, right? It's a pool day. But nobody gets in the water. Nobody except Jazzy. I swear to you, they're all lined up on the pool and one person gets in. And as soon as she does, the rest of them gasp. I mean, you would think that she was jumping into a dark lagoon with like that's filled with gators and piranhas. And I mean, I don't know what the God's name they were thinking. I mean, this was a beautiful pool. You could see the bottom, but they were not having it. Then Stacy starts talking about TJ. She says she misses him when they're not together, that they pray together, they talk about their future plans together. She wants to introduce him to her daughter, but she doesn't know when she's going to get divorced because they still haven't agreed on all the things that they need to agree on. Ashley pipes up and says, well, I do. I know when I'm going to get divorced. My meditation, my my mediation day is coming up, and I will be officially divorced very soon after that. Then the women are joined by Wendy, the birthday girl, who goes on to ask Stacy if her husband knows about TJ. And Stacy says, of course he does, but he doesn't know the extent of TJ's feelings for me. And Wendy interjects and goes, well, who does he think TJ is? And Stacy says, a friend. Then Jazzy starts talking about her relationship and the fact that her guy has 2 kids. And while she's talking, they flash back to a scene where they're ring shopping and she's looking at the diamond on her hand and she asks him, is this going to be big enough to keep the men's to stay off me? To keep the men's to stay off me. The men's? Then as Wendy is admiring her leg muscles, Jacqueline joins the girls. And then Mia comes out carrying a bouquet of flowers and hands them to the birthday girl. Wendy reads the card and tells the ladies that the flowers are from her husband, her kids, and the dog, which was nice, right? But am I the only person that was absolutely shocked at how basic that bouquet was? I mean, honestly, I couldn't believe it. I mean, come on. That was literally the cheapest option. I'm talking that was the $29.99, maybe the $19.99 option. Not the kind of bouquet that your family sends you when you turn 40. I mean, when you turn 40, I think you deserve a bouquet that requires 2 hands to carry it. No one-handed bouquets when you're 40. Sorry. Then Stacy asks Wendy if she's getting in the pool, and then somehow that starts some weird dance competition. And it is safe to say that Stacy is, I don't know, you guys, she is a strange fucking duck. It's true. I mean, what is happening with her? She is interesting. That girl needs to get to know herself because I honestly don't think that anyone that moves that awkwardly is just in touch with their own vibe. I mean, and it's true that Stacy has no swag. She has no swag, zero, zilch, nada. And then in confessional, Stacy goes, listen, I don't drop it like it's hot. I don't know how to twerk. I don't know how to shake that thing. I just move, the way the music tells me to move. I'm telling you, there's some miscommunication there because the music's saying one thing and she's hearing another. Then Mia hops, then Mia hops on Kiarna, gives her a little twerk, and Kiarna comes back with, hey Mia, you can twerk all you want, but I heard what you said. Then Giselle comes back from the girls' graduation. She walks in and she instantly gets the lowdown on what's been happening since she's been gone. Jazzy spills all the tea about what went down at breakfast when Ashley asked Kiarna about her scar, right? Remember that? Then Ashley walks in and provides some added detail to the whole situation and does the most amazing impression of Kiarna's reaction to the question. How dare you ask me about my scar? And honestly, I really didn't understand Kiarna's reaction, why there was such a reaction to that question. I mean, if someone said that to me, wouldn't you go, hello, yeah, can you see it? Are you blind? Of course I have a scar. What are you talking about? Are you calling me a liar? There were just so many other things that she could have come back with. But I mean, it was just so like over the top and the storming out. I mean, she just asked you a question. Weird. Then Jacqueline walks in and she tells Giselle that she's so happy that she's back. It was like the mother has returned and now maybe she'll be able to control the kids. You know what I mean? Then the rest of the women gather around the table. Mia is now carrying a big bottle of tequila, and then Mia gives the girls a show and deep throats that tequila bottle before she chokes on what came out of it. Once Mia gathers herself, she announces that is how you keep two men happy. And now we know. Then the girls get in a bus headed for the joint. And on the way, Wendy tells Giselle that she caught Stacy outside on the balcony twirling her hair. And Giselle asks back, hey, do you know this TJ character? And Stacy goes, well, you can Google him. He's a well-known actor. Well-known actor. Remember that part. His name is Thomas Anthony Jones. And Giselle goes, okay, I'm looking. What's he been on? And Stacy goes, oh, he's been on a lot of things. And of course I looked. Of course I looked. And he has never been a series regular. He did do 2 episodes of Days of Our Lives and 3 episodes on JAG. And his last acting credit was in 2021. Wendy goes, so he does acting work. Giselle asks her when he comes to town, how often he comes to town, and she says he usually tries to come every other week to come and check in on me and make sure I'm okay. And then Giselle asks, so are you guys having sex? And she says, no, we haven't. And Giselle goes, damn. And Stacy says, no, we said that we didn't want to have sex until we were married. And Giselle goes, oh, come on, stop. And then Wendy busted out laughing like I have never heard her laugh, I don't think, in all of the years that she's been on this show. Meanwhile, Mia's in the back listening to everything that's happening, and she whispers she hasn't had sex because she's so stiff. And then Giselle says, well, have you at least felt around? Because you need to know what you're working with. And Stacy says, he's a beautiful man. I know what I'm working with. And then Wendy goes, hey, it could be a thumb. And then Stacy says, listen, I'm not going to lie. It is his decision. He is a very devout Christian man. And then Giselle goes, well, you can feel around. You can do oral before you get married. And she goes, well, I don't know if he's willing. And then to camera, Stacy says, it is difficult. However, you can direct your attention to other things. There's working out. There's going to the zoo. Wendy asks how old he is, and Giselle says, he's 41. And immediately Stacy says, yes, and he's been waiting for his wife all this time. And Giselle once again busts out laughing. And then in confessional, Giselle says, you need to be able to hold on to the steering wheel. You need to be able to rub it up and down a little bit. If there's a stick shift, you definitely want to be able to move it up and down, and you want to be able to sit comfortably. And Stacy, you don't know what you're getting. Also, I looked up his IG, you guys, and his handle is in, get this, I swear to you, I'm not kidding, Tej in action. TEEJ in action. So corny. And his only link is his IMDb page, and he has like 3,500 followers. And on his page, there is no sign of Stacy, none at all, 0, nothing. And then I went to her page, and funny enough, there's no evidence of him there either. So now I'm just wondering if this whole relationship really is just staged for the show. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, either that or she is really out to lunch. I want to know what you guys think. If you think that this whole TJ thing is just to spice up her storyline, let me know. Leave me a comment. I want to know. Do you think that she planned this, or do you think that she really thinks that this relationship is real? I want to know. Leave me a comment. Then the ladies all arrive at the joint, and none of them can really even understand what in God's name they're doing there. Mia tells them that she doesn't own this location anymore, but that she does have 22 others and that she still owns and is currently selling. Then the girls go to lunch, and as soon as they sit down, Giselle gets the drama going when she brings up what she had heard regarding that fight that went down at breakfast over the scar comment. She turns to Kiarna and asks her, are you okay? And Kay says, yeah, I'm okay, but I was very upset. But I think she was just piggybacking off of Mia. And then her and Mia get into it, comparing their checkered past. Then the ladies head home and everybody starts getting ready for their big dinner in the city. Mia has instructed everyone to wear red. And while the rest of the ladies are inside getting ready, Giselle and Ashley slip outside for a little fireside chat. And Ashley brings up that song that she wrote last year about healing and surviving. She tells Giselle that she's made a couple tweaks and put an EDM beat behind it. And Giselle, you can tell, is honestly really excited to hear it until Ashley plays it. And after that, you could not miss the disappointment on Giselle's face and mine. Then we go inside, and what happens next, you guys, honestly blew my mind. I mean, honestly, anyway, let's just get into it. They're all inside. The women are starting to come downstairs. And then Jacqueline goes, ooh, somebody stinks. It smells like stank pussy or something. And no, I'm not making this up. So all the women start holding their noses. And then Mia walks over to Jacqueline, stands in front of her, lifts the front of her dress up and says, smell it. Is it me? I can't. You can't make this shit up. Smell it. Is it me? Now, can somebody please explain to me? I don't know who these people are. I do not know any single person that would do that. Do you? Do you know someone that would actually, it's just, I mean, call me a Karen, but that's just fucking gross. Then Wendy makes her big birthday entrance and all the ladies load into the bus and head to the city for dinner. And along the way, they play F, Marry, and Kill. And the birthday girl herself says that she would F Giselle because they've been at odds for so long and there's nothing better than makeup sex, which I thought was very cute and very clever. When it was Stacy's turn, she said she would F Mia because she'd never be bored. True. And then she goes, just like this, and I'm not kidding. I'm so not an undercover freak. Okay, maybe. Yes, I am. Oh, I can't believe I just said that. Again, I don't know. I do not know. She's a trip. She's a fucking trip. And then it's Jacqueline's turn. And okay, Jacqueline, the same one that made that comment in the kitchen, sit down for this one. Jacqueline says, okay, well, I would definitely F Ashley. Everybody goes, ooh, ah. And then she goes, because I've already F Mia. And literally everyone fainted. Literally, I think everyone fainted. It took them 2 minutes to pick their jaws up off the floor. And then Ashley in confessional reminds us that Mia and Jacqueline have already acknowledged the fact that Mia has explored Jacqueline's vagina with a flashlight. And then to camera, Mia says, she talks too much. What happens at the lake stays at the lake. Then it's Mia's turn, and she announces that she will F the shit out of all y'all. And that's when Giselle takes particular notice about the fact that Jacqueline does not mind Mia screwing a million different dudes, but when she even talks about another woman, Jacqueline goes crazy. She gets jealous, very jealous. She gets territorial and literally like a scorned lover. And then Jacqueline, and this shit is unbelievable, Jacqueline says, listen, I am never jealous about what Mia does with other girls because at the end of the day, I'm the queen bee up in here and they better acknowledge me and my presence. Is she unhinged? I mean, that's crazy talk. Nuts. Jacqueline, hey, Jacqueline, it's called a grip. Get one. Then the women all sit down for dinner and Karen says, well, Wendy, what a birthday. And Wendy says, it truly is. I'm going to remember this forever. And then she goes on to talk about the fact that she's always just celebrated her birthday with her family and that she never really invited friends to celebrate with her because she honestly never felt like people would want to celebrate her. And then she reflected back on the fact that when this group met her, she had just had a baby and she was a completely different person then. She says that she was very unsure of herself. And she says, you guys saw me have kids. You saw me go through body transformations, different businesses. And all that time I was growing. And here I am at 40, finally realizing that I am enough. And then they go around the table and everyone says really genuine, sweet things about Wendy. Everyone except Jacqueline, who opened her mouth and once again made a complete ass out of herself. Third time on this episode. Then there's a champagne toast to Wendy, and Ashley slips in, and to Stacy for opening up and giving us her guy's government name. And Stacy says, I think that's enough talking about me. Why don't we talk about Jazzy's man? Then Jazzy says, thank you for asking about Darius. She says, he's amazing. He is someone I'm going to marry. We've had some bumps in the road, but we've gotten over that. He's a great father to 2 boys. And then someone asks how old these boys are. And once she tells them, it becomes very clear to everyone that at the beginning of their relationship, Darius was less than faithful. Darius's math was not mathing. Then Kiarna speaks up and says, I've seen this kind of behavior before. I dated someone in the league who got 2 different women pregnant and twins. And Mia pipes up and says, wait a minute. Who was that? Who was that? And she's like, don't worry about it, Mia. And she goes, no, I'm just asking because that exact thing happened to me. And I'm just wondering if it's the same guy. What team did he play for? The Ravens? Then Stacy gets a little less stiff and raises her glass to toast Ashley. She wants to toast Ashley for allowing her to feel comfortable in this group. Stacy says that the way Ashley is handling and open about her divorce is inspiring her to be open about her own situation. And then the girls decide that it's time to go home and get in their cozy jammies. And then Jacqueline, for a 4th time, decides to stick her foot in her mouth. And she says, and you guys also need to take a shower because y'all been dirty all week. I mean, what is wrong with her? She's like, I don't know, vagina obsessed. Then the next morning, Wendy greets the first day of her 40s, hungover as hell, and then everyone packs up and heads back to Potomac. And there we have it. And I'm telling you, I was shocked so many times. And honestly, I don't care if I ever see Jacqueline again. She can exit stage right. I'd be more than happy with that. All right, now cruising on over to part 1 of the OC reunion, you guys. I thought all the women looked amazing. I honestly did. I thought they looked so good. Truly, as far as reunion fashion goes, I think that they were all winners, honestly, across the board. I love Katie's Asian-inspired burgundy dress, and then Gina's gold disco number. I thought that looked great on her. Heather looked incredible in that chocolate, and Emily's like simple, stunning. I loved it. I even thought Shannon's dress was perfect for her. It was very Shannon. And then I loved Tamra's raspberry dress. I thought that really suited her. I thought that everyone looked amazing. First time I honestly ever thought that about any reunion, where I just thought everyone was on point. I liked the fact that they weren't like too overdone. It didn't look like, I don't know, like they were going to a big ball. I mean, everyone was just dressed and not overdressed for once. Andy starts the show with softball questions for the girls. He asks Tamra how she's feeling after that big facial procedure she had that was all over the internet. He asked Emily if she's still working out 7 days a week. She said no, she's not as obsessed. And she says that Shane is now working out with her once a week, that she has him with a trainer once a week. So that's a start. He asked Heather about the state of her current construction. She says it's a disaster. Gina tells Andy that her real estate venture is really starting to get some traction. And he asked Katie if Sutton offered her any advice on her first reunion, to which she responds with, no, we haven't talked in a few weeks. More on that later. Then he congratulates Jen on her engagement and asks her when the wedding's happening. She says in June. And then we get to Shannon, and Andy says, well, Shannon, you are looking very happy and healthy today. And Shannon says, I am. And listen, I don't know where exactly Shannon is in her healing journey. I really don't. But I do know that Shannon looked better than she has in years. I mean, she looked so much better than she did last season. Do you remember that? I mean, do I need to remind you of that disaster? The hair, the yellow, it was bad. Andy asks her how the dating life is going, and Shannon says that she has nothing to report, nothing yet, because she has literally just started dating. Then Andy says, why don't we focus on setting some intentions for tonight? And then he turns to Tamra and says, why don't you share with Shannon what you said to me? And Tamra goes, yeah, well, I just said that I want to talk about why I was hurt by what went down and hope that we can get to a common ground. But I don't want it to be uncomfortable or toxic. And then Andy says, and you said that you're starting therapy this week. What are your goals? And Tamra says, to really find out where my anger comes from. And Andy says to Shannon, how do you take that? And Shannon just instantly launched into, the way I was treated by you is unacceptable. You attacked me, and I really don't have any interest in being friends with you. And Tamara goes, okay. Then Shannon says, because what I'm doing in my therapy is I'm creating healthy boundaries for myself. And a healthy boundary is not being in a toxic relationship with you. Tamara says, are you saying that our entire relationship, that our entire friendship was toxic? And Shannon says, absolutely, especially when you came back on the show. We never got back to the type of friendship we had before. And Tamara says, well, I thought we were getting there. And Shannon says, oh, Tamara, you can keep exaggerating about how close we were and how much time we spent together. But we weren't that close, Tamara. You and I weren't that close. And Tamara says, it's not about all the time we actually spent together. What about all that time we spent on the phone? We talked every day. And Andy interjects and says to Shannon, what she's trying to say is that she wants to remove the toxicity from your relationship. And Shannon goes, well, I don't know. There's a lot of open wounds right here. And this is exactly why Shannon shouldn't be drinking, because big, open, emotional wounds are addiction's preferred playground, right? You don't drink when you have big, open, emotional wounds. You just don't, period. Jen says that her intention for today is to try and find a more peaceful path forward with Emily. Katie says that she wants to own up to a couple things that she regrets. And Heather says that she hopes to walk out of here calling almost everyone her friend. Then Andy begins to read, all right, after making headlines for her DUI arrest just 10 days after last year's reunion, Shannon started the season under a microscope as she vowed to work on herself. Most fans were rooting for the Shannon reboot, but her ex-amiga Tamra felt like she was watching reruns of the same old show. And then they flash back to the most incredible old scenes of Shannon saying things about how horrible it was for people to drink and drive and how she would never do that. And then they cut to reaction shots of how everyone felt when they heard about Shannon's DUI. And there were just all these scenes throughout the years of people addressing Shannon's toxic relationship with alcohol. I mean, I know that Tamara was hard on Shannon this season, but we cannot forget that Shannon has created this scenario because of the fact that she can't face her the fact that her relationship with alcohol is completely unhealthy. Shannon is the epitome of a person who loses relationships because of the fallout from her drinking. It's just a fact. Shannon uses alcohol to cope. I think that's pretty much her only coping mechanism. You can see Shannon, she has no coping mechanism. That's why she bolts all the time, because she can't cope. She bolts because she can't cope. I mean, Shannon's drinking has very obviously been a problem since her very first season on the show. I mean, she drinks because she feels miserable inside. She doesn't feel like she's enough. And she is constantly judging herself. And that's why she's constantly judging other people. I mean, honestly, Shannon's problem is Shannon alone. The drinking is just what she uses to cope. And yes, it has become a problem. And that problem has taken its toll on her friendship with Tamra. And that's exhausting. You know the way you have high maintenance friends and low maintenance friends? Shannon is a high maintenance friend, and not just high maintenance, but like the highest and the most dysfunctional and the one that won't face her truth. So she's just stuck in that cycle. And how long could someone expect Tamra to stay on that crazy train? I just don't get it. Then Shannon says to Andy, what is difficult about today is that I'm at a place where I just don't feel like I need to keep defending myself. And Andy asks her about her current relationship with alcohol. And she says, oh, it's very different now. I used to use alcohol to cope because I didn't feel good inside, and it would make me forget. Then he turned to Heather and says, Heather, you seem to agree with Tamara about Shannon's drinking. And she says, yeah, basically, I was really worried because of what Terry said. Terry said that anyone that can have a blood alcohol level that high and still be awake must really be a very heavy drinker. Then Andy reads a question to Gina from a viewer asking her why she's had so much sympathy for Shannon after how hard Shannon came for her and brought her kids into it last time. She still continues to drink, and all she can say is that she's embarrassed. And Gina says, well, I don't think that's all she says. Gina goes on to say that through the whole thing, Shannon has really shown remorse and regret and sadness, and that she really believes that Shannon is remorseful. And then she goes on to say that seeing that remorse with her own eyes led her to forgive Shannon. And then Emily pipes up and says, it's true that Shannon did feel remorse and regret. She says, I was there and I saw it. I saw the pain that it caused her and all the remorse that she carried. Tamra wasn't around to see that, so it's a different situation. And Tamra says, yeah, I wasn't. Then Andy reads a question to Tamra that says, why do you feel mocking and berating Shannon is going to make her stop drinking? And Tamra says, yeah, looking back, that really just came from anger. And that was my one thing to go to because I knew that would upset her. And Shannon says, you know what you did, Tamra? You said, I was on the phone with her every single day after her DUI. But no, you weren't. No, you weren't. You were in Scotland. And Tamra says, but I was as soon as I got back from Scotland. And Shannon says, I did get the help. I did get the help. I went to a place for 30 days. And you have the audacity at Gina's dinner to say lie, lie, lie. And Tamra says, the reason I said that is because you've called me drunk several times after that. That's why. And then Tamra says, one time you called me drunk, talking like a crazy person, and then you called me back 10 minutes after that, saying the exact same thing. And Shannon says, Tamra, you don't know anything about me. And Tamra says, I know that this is the 10th reunion that we're talking about your drinking. And then once again, they flash back to 10 different reunions where they were indeed talking about the effects of Shannon's drinking. I mean, you just can't deny it. Then a question comes in for Shannon about her relationship with Heather, and Shannon says she has a real problem with what went down at the end of the season. She says, when I showed you that picture, you were all, oh, Shannon. But then you said you already knew. But sorry, you can already know because someone told you something and then still be shocked when you see the picture of it, right? That can hit you totally differently. Even if you knew that it existed, seeing it with your own eyes will absolutely cause a reaction. And then Heather says, listen, I didn't discuss our conversation with anyone until I heard you talking about it on Jeff Lewis. Until I heard you talk about it on Jeff Lewis, I didn't say a word. Shannon says, I will say that the first night in London was horrible. And Andy says, well, the second and the third weren't much better. And then Shannon says to Heather, and then you turned it into, you're a liar and you're using me. And then Heather says, listen, I get it. I get why you're mad. And if you don't think that you can trust me with your sensitive information, then please, I beg you, do not tell me. And I felt that 100%. Then Andy brings up the Gina and Travis story and asks Tamra why she thinks Shannon wanted to bring up that information at the reunion last year. And Tamra says, well, they'd been fighting. And Gina says, she wanted to hurt me. And then there was that wiener thing. And then Andy asked Gina if she was more hurt that Shannon was going to use that information at the reunion last year or that Tamra brought it up this year. And Gina says, honestly, more that Tamra brought it up. Then Andy says, Tamra has admitted that she came too hard for you this year, Shannon. And then he turns to Tamra and he says, is there anything that you want to explain about that, Tamra? And Tamra says, I think for me, I was witnessing her continued drinking and she was calling me intoxicated. And Shannon says, stop doing that because I didn't. And Tamra says, yes, you did. She says, no, I did it. And Shannon and Tamra says back to her, keep gaslighting, Shannon. And then Andy turns to Tamra and says, so are you sorry about the way you came at her this season? And Tamra says, yes, I was struggling with the fact that I knew you were still drinking. And Shannon goes, Tamra, you can't say sorry, but. You can't say but. And Tamra says, I didn't say but. I said, I don't think that you got the help that you really needed. And Shannon says, I know I got the help I needed because I'm good. And Tamra says, well, that's all I've ever wanted for you. And then Emily very pointedly says to Shannon, Shannon, Gina forgave you when you apologized and you were harsh. You said horrible things to her about her. And then they flash back to Shannon over the years, lambasting Gina for that DUI over and over again, just bringing it up at every opportunity so that she could put herself in a good light and make herself look like the hero that saved not just Gina's life, but also saved her kids from being placed into foster care. I mean, it was incessant. Every time she had an opportunity, she could just meet someone and just be like, hi, I'm Shannon. I'm the one that saved Gina's life. She was going to go to jail and her kids were going to go to Child Protective Services. I mean, it was disgusting. And Emily says, and Shannon, Gina forgave you when you apologized. And now that toxicity is gone. So can you apply the same here? And Shannon looks at Tamara and says, I accept your apology. I appreciate your apology. I just don't want to be your friend. And then coming back from break, we see my sweetheart Flo fixing Heather's hair while she announced that she had pooped this morning. And then Shannon says, I'm about to poop right now. And can I just say, enough with the shit talking, ladies? And then the focus turns to Katie, and we get a montage of Katie's greatest hits of the season. And then Andy asks her about how the reunification with her birth mother is going. And Katie says that they had to put it on hold because her husband's father passed away, and so that changed their plans. Then Andy asks her about her sons, and while she's answering, Gina pipes up and implies that Katie's stories aren't exactly adding up. And she says that Katie lied about owning her house in San Diego, and because of that, Gina finds it hard to trust her. And then Emily jumps on the bandwagon, and then Heather says to Emily, hey, when I look you up, there are no stories online, and me either, except the one that Terry's cheating on me. Then Andy says, Katie, you've been in the news recently regarding a $5 million lawsuit over your company, T-Shot. Someone is claiming that it wasn't your original idea, and Katie says, yes, but I was just dismissed from that case. And that's when Heather says, there's just a lot of janky stories. In fact, Sutton texted me the other day and said that Katie had used her. Sutton told Heather that Katie said that she was going to be bringing some high-profile golfers to her home in Augusta, but no one showed up. And that Katie never even paid the photographer. She just used Sutton to promote her business. And then Katie comes back and says, what is she talking about? I offered to pay for everything, even the catering. And then Andy dives into that whole first altercation that Katie's been talking about since the beginning of the season. The one at Kathy Hilton's Christmas party where Heather apparently snubbed Katie. Heather tells Katie that that did not happen, that she is a storyteller. And then she says, let me just tell you something. When someone is coming into this group, we all want to have friends. Only a moron would do something like that. And I am not a moron. Then Heather says, and I want to be clear, I didn't call the paparazzi. I didn't pass them a note in biology. I didn't wink at anyone. Nobody notified the paparazzi. So let it go. And I don't know why you were trying to look into me months before you met me. I think it's weird with you. There's a story for everything, and I just think you have no credibility. And then Heather does her best Mary Cosby and goes, and bop, bop, bop. The question is, why do you care? Why do you care? And Katie says, honestly, Heather, I never thought that it would be so rattling. And Heather says, yes, you did. Yes, you did. This is your thing. And let's not forget that falsely accusing people is kind of your thing. And then that opens a whole other can of worms about Katie's past. Shannon says, well, what other false allegations have there been? And Emily says she falsely accused someone and he ended up going to prison. And Katie says, he didn't go to prison. And can I just tell you the story? And Emily says, no, because honestly, I don't think I believe your stories. Andy goes, I want to hear the story. And so she goes on and tells her side of a story that apparently happened 9 or 10 years ago, something about texting and road rage. And as Katie is telling the story, Heather says that is not the story that the police tell. And then Heather tells the side of the story that she knows. And these two stories are vastly, vastly different. And in Heather's version, Katie is very much the one in the wrong. Katie speaks up and says that at that time she was basically homeless with 3 kids and that she had nowhere to go. Katie says the only reason why she lost custody to her ex is because she was basically homeless and she couldn't provide a place for them to live. Katie said that her ex had sole custody for 18 months and that in that time she never once missed a visitation. And then Katie starts to crack and her voice starts to break and she starts to cry as she remembers that horrible time in her life. And then Heather walks over and reaches out and says, listen, I'm really sorry. That must have been so devastating. Then the spotlight turns to Jen with 2 ends. Her opening package is full of headlines all about Ryan's scandalous behavior and what everyone else thinks about Ryan's scandalous behavior. Andy opens up with, so Jen, when the news broke that there was this gambling scandal and that Ryan was involved, did you think about calling off the engagement? And Jen says, no, but that day was hard. Ryan went one way and I went the other. And Andy says, well, did he tell you not to worry because of the fact that he had immunity? And she says, no, I already knew that. I knew that like 7 months before. Then Tamara says, then why did you get mad when I mentioned the FBI? And she says, because you said it like he was in trouble with the FBI. And Tamara says, well, he would have been if he didn't cooperate. And Jen goes, I don't know. And I mean, what is she talking about? She doesn't know. That's why people cooperate, to get themselves out of a bind. I mean, he's not just giving them information to put his buddy away if he's not going to get something out of it. Then Andy asked Jen what she meant when she said that she fucked it all up. And Jen said, I knew that article was coming. And I thought that if I wasn't sitting on this couch, that Ryan wouldn't have been mentioned in this article. Jen says it would have just been about Matt and his business. And Emily says the reason why Ryan was mentioned is because he was involved, not because you're sitting on this couch. And she says, and Jen, I feel badly that you feel like he was implicated because of something you did, because that's just not true. And Jen says back, but he's not involved in Matt's bookie business at all. He never has been. And Emily says, I'm sorry, but that's just not true, because everything I've read, and I've done a lot of research because I've wanted to understand it. From everything I've read, he is involved. And in order for him to have immunity, that means that he's testified. And she screams, he never testified. But honestly, how does she know? Like, how can she be so sure that he didn't testify? Like, maybe it was like confidential. Maybe he's pretending like he never testified. So, there's no retribution or something. How does she know? I mean, he could have had 20 secret meetings with them that she doesn't even know about. And then Andy says to her, well, Jen, if he didn't testify, then how did he get immunity? And Emily says, I can answer that. I would think that he's providing them information about Matt so that they can prosecute Matt. And Jen screams, are you crazy? That's his best friend. And Gina goes, yeah, but you yourself said that Ryan told them everything he knew. And Andy goes, yeah, that's how you get immunity. And Jen goes, I don't understand where you guys are getting all this. And Emily goes, because I'm an attorney and that's how it works. And then Andy says to Jen, can you explain to me what the dirty business was? And Jen goes, what dirty business? Emily goes, I can explain. So Otani's interpreter had a gambling addiction, and he made all these bets with Matt, who was an illegal bookie. So he racked up a ton of debt, and in order to pay his debt, he stole money out of Otani's account. That money went into Ryan's account, something like $17 million. It was in Ryan's name. And then Ryan moved the money around into marker accounts and casinos, specifically Resorts World and Pachanga. And then he cashed the money in for chips that they gambled, and that Ryan and Matt took 32 trips to Vegas. And then Emily says, listen, Jen, I'm not trying to attack Ryan, but the fact is that the two of them were cashing the chips in. That's laundering money. I mean, Matt even said it at your party. And Shannon says, is it okay for her to be talking about this? And Andy says, well, he has immunity. And Jen says, yes, he's not being charged with anything. Then Shannon says, well, Emily, if she's saying that the only part that Ryan had to do with this is his name being on the account, and Emily says, well, that is the opposite of everything that I have read. And Jen says, well, I've read that your in-laws fund your entire life. And Emily says, look, at the end of the day, I would just have more respect for you and Ryan if you said, listen, he's made some bad decision, but he's on the straight and narrow now. And Jen says, but he hasn't. And Emily says, how hasn't he? Didn't he lose his mortgage license? You don't just lose your mortgage license for nothing. And Jen says, you always do this. What does Shane have? And Emily says, you always do this Tammy Wynette thing where you just have to stand up for your man. But sometimes, Jen, you need to be accountable. And Jen says, I am very accountable. And I hear Emily's point. I really do. But I also understand the practicality of it. And I know that Jen is not going to be leaving her man, at least anytime soon, because she still isn't receiving that support that she was supposed to be getting from her ex. I mean, Ryan pays for everything except, I mean, hopefully now this paycheck, this housewife paycheck is going to allow her to sock some money away so she isn't so dependent on Ryan. But for now, she is holding on to him for dear life, and I get it. Okay, everybody, well, that about does it for this episode of Generally Speaking. But before I head out for my date with my daughter to go see Dancing with the Stars, did I tell you guys it's the 500th episode? I am so excited for this show. But before I go, I just want to touch on something that I've been seeing a lot of on social media, and it is so upsetting to me. And unfortunately, it is it's kind of based around everything that happened on Tuesday. I know we're still in the shadow of everything that went down that day, and I know that everyone is still heated and is still, rejoicing or recovering, whatever side you're on. But online, I've been seeing a lot of people encouraging other people not to spend time and spend the Thanksgiving holiday with friends or family if they voted differently than they did. And it is just so upsetting to me. And I've been mostly seeing blue folks encouraging other blue folks not to sit with red folks. And let me just tell you something. This shit has to stop, you guys. It does. We need to stop being so tribal. You can't talk about unity and just dig yourself in deeper. It just doesn't make any sense. We need to come together and stay rooted in the things that connect us, not the things that divide us. The way to improve our country is not by cutting people off. It's by communicating and communing with people. So sit with them and gather with the ones you love, even if you don't love everything about them. I, on the other hand, love everything about you guys. I have loved spending this time with you. Thank you so much for spending it with me. If you've been watching this on YouTube, please make sure you reach out and smash that subscribe button. If you've been listening on your favorite streaming platform, please make sure you give us a follow. Share us with your friends, share us with your family, give us a 5-star rating. We would love that. If you'd like to reach me on socials, you can find me on TikTok at This Is Generally Speaking or on Instagram at The Jennifer Snook. If you would like to collaborate or have a question you'd like answered on the pod, you can reach me at jennifer@jennifersnook.com. And if you would like to get your hands on any of this adorable Generally Speaking merch, I will leave the link down below. I hope you're having the most wonderful week. And until we are together again, everybody, stay rooted in love. See you later.